So, quick question. In your entire career, have you ever actually watched a company break down its marketing silos? I mean, really do it? I mean, the walls come down, marketing and sales and product and comms and PR, they all link arms and skip off into the sunset together? Yeah, me neither. So for about 20 years now, we've been told to tear down the silos. And for about 20 years, the silos have been standing right there, thriving. So here's a thought. Maybe we stop trying to tear them down. I mean, what if silos were never the problem? So for the last gajillion years, and yes, that is a technical term, gajillion years, one of the hottest concepts in marketing has been to break down silos. It is on every conference stage. It is slide 3 of every transformation deck. Tear down the walls between content, brand, demand gen, PR, and comms, and collaboration will finally bloom. And I've watched that work approximately never. I mean, the silos were standing before the offsite where we all did the trust exercise with the Olympic decathlon keynote speaker, and they were standing after it. Some companies even tried the pod thing a few years back. Remember that? Remember the pods? Force everybody into cross-functional squads organized around outcomes instead of function. And congratulations, now we've managed to invent more little silos. The pods just became tiny little empires, each one hoarding goals and context that nobody else could see. Every time I'd hear of the pods, I'd think of this.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
What's the problem?
So here's the thing. The silos themselves were never really the problem. A silo is just a fancy word for specialization, and specialization is where expertise actually lives. You want your demand gen people to be freakishly good at demand gen. The day you dissolve everybody into a well-rounded generalist pod is the day your work regresses to the mean, competent, forgettable, deep at nothing. The same beige nothing, by the way, that everybody else is already cranking out. The depth you're trying to protect and the walls you want to tear down are made of the exact same material. So the goal was never zero silos. What we really wanted was permeable ones, walls that keep their shape and still let the right things pass through, transparency. We might call it insane in the membrane. And yeah, right there is how you know there's a human behind this, because Claude ain't out there quoting Cypress Hill. Anyway, in last week's video and my article, what I'd promised you was a role that we might employ to run our content pipeline, our story budget process, as I called it. And that editor, well, if they're sealed inside an airtight content silo, well, they're just going to build bigger and shinier islands. So the real question this week is how the content silo connects to everything else without any of them dissolving. And the answer is a membrane. And as usual, newsrooms, media companies have figured this out. So remember, newsrooms have this ancient divide that's even bigger than the one that we have in our own internal silos. They have editorial on one side, the business on the other, church and state. So marketing has its own version, of course, and most of us have really stopped noticing that that wall is even there until it's actually seen, like the silos are seen. So on one side, the content and brand people, we have the makers, right? And on the other, we have demand gen, product, data people who own the funnel, the performance marketing, the number. And the de-silo crowd says, well, merge them all, break them all down, put them into pods, and 100 failed reorgs say you cannot and you should not do that. What you can do, however, is make the wall between them permeable. Turns out there's already a name for the person, the role, whose entire job it is to become part of the permeable part of the wall. Now, some people have called it a boundary spanner, which comes out of the UK and honestly is the most perfectly UK way of explaining something like this, the boundary spanner. Other newsrooms have called it a bridge role. These are people, roles, who sit between the silos and pull a cross-functional team together around a single outcome. A bridge does not blow up the newsroom or the sales team. It just makes the wall between them leak on purpose. Now, the obvious objection, and it is a good one, because isn't this just another word for cross-functional team initiatives? And maybe, and check this out, we know that cross-functional teams are famously a big mess, right? Harvard Business Review studied 96 of them and found 75% of these cross-functional initiatives were just flat out dysfunctional. So am I just prescribing the thing that fails 3 times out of 4? Well, no. I want you to look at why they failed. No clear owner, no accountability, fuzzy goals, which is to say they were doing exactly what the de-silo gospel preaches. Throw a bunch of people in a room and yell, collaborate. The 75% that fail is the case against tearing down silos. The 25% that works has the one thing that others do not, an owner that is the bridge. Now, what does the bridge actually carry? Well, it's the feedback loop. Now, I want you to think about it like this. So in content and marketing, we love to draw the life cycle as kind of a tidy little circle, a process: strategy, creation, distribution, measurement, and then back around to strategy. And it's perfect, right? But almost nobody runs it in that continuous cyclical way. Every stage has a different owner who barely talks to the next one. So by the time your measurement limps all the way back around to strategy, it's been through so many hands, it's like a game of telephone. You started with a signal and you are planning the next quarter on the noise. The bridge is the one set of hands all the way through, carrying that signal intact all the way around. And the signal worth carrying, it's not like page views and downloads and all that kind of stuff. It's the real value, the real value. So here's a real world example. Financial services tech company, and their content team was a sealed vault, cut off from the demand gen team that owned the audience and the data team that knew what the audience was doing. Textbook move would say, hey, blow that up, merge everybody into one group, create pods, merge it all, de-silo it. And we did the opposite. We left the wall standing and built a permeable membrane, right? Some agentic AI pulling live sentiment and trust signals out of the key audiences and making that available to everybody. That was wired straight into their content council. We talked about that last week. The content council that ran their story budget with one person, a brand new bridge role owning all of that flow. Nobody got merged. The specialist stayed specialist. The insights and information just started crossing the walls in a fluid way. So the next time a deck tells you to break down the silos, push back. You won't do it, by the way, and on the impossible day you somehow did, you would miss them by Friday. So keep the walls, build the doors. Do not hire one more specialist to bury inside a silo, and do not spin up a committee to span all of them at once. Hire or assign the one person whose entire job is to keep the wall permeable. The editor runs the budget. The bridge role keeps the silo open and permeable. Build both, and your content stops being an island, and your specialists stay exactly as sharp as you need them. Just finally connected. It's your story. Connect it well, and I'll see you next week.